Greetings and welcome to another Final Fantasy XIV video, this time for the Black Mage, the most, well, at least one of the two, according to whatever on the internet, most damaging classes in the current patch for 5.2. Or is it 5.3? No, it should be 5.2 because we are waiting for 5.3 for the next part of the factory raid. But anyway, the Black Mage. The Black Mage is actually surprisingly easy to have a rotation down. The only problem is having to move during bosses and everything else. But other than that, if you can sit still for around 15 seconds, the damage you're going to do is going to be through the roof. So, what is this rotation? Well, first let's take a look at our abilities that we got. So the most important ability from all of this stuff that we got from level 70 to level 80 is Aspect Mastery. As you can see, accumulating full stacks of either Astral Fire or Umbral Ice, and then casting a spell of the opposite element will consume no MP. This means that after using any of our mana consuming spells like Flare or Despair, we no longer need to hit Transpose and wait for a mana tick in order to be able to use one of our ice spells. Instead, because we're going, because that counts 3 and that counts 3, because they grant Astral Fire 3, we can now cast any ice spell we want for free, and then hopefully that will give us the Umbral Hearts and the Fire buff that we want, to go into that phase. So that means we can use Flare with impunity now because we no longer have anything interrupting our use for it. But what else did we get? We got Enhanced Sharpcast. This is really only useful on AoE pulls. Then we have an Enhanced Knock-In, which increases its damage to 15% from 10%. Okay. And Enhanced Polyglot. Now this sounds powerful, but honestly, unless you are coordinating with a friend or with your raid in order for a maximum damage phase, you should be using your Polyglot stacks as soon as they come up, especially if you are in a Pug dungeon. Otherwise, you can use it to help stack them up. Now, what about actions? What else could we get new? Well, we got Despair that we already gone over. Umbral Soul is our form shift for the mage. That way, in between pulls, we can actually keep our Umbral Hearts and Umbral Ice stacks, stacking Enochian, as we run through the dungeon, keeping our buffs up, which is very nice. And Cinoglossy, or Cinoglossy, however you want to call it. So as you can see, Cinoglossy is literally a single target version of Foul. Foul deals AoE damage, this one does single target damage. Despair is the single target version of Flare. So Flare deals 260, Despair deals 380, and it's pretty quick cast. So where's the rotation? Well, it's actually pretty simple. At the beginning of the fight, you're going to go into Swift Cast, into Blizzard 3 to get our Umbral Ice 3 going, which is what we want. At that point, we are between the global cooldown, we are going to trigger Enochian to get it going. Then we're going to use a Blizzard 4 in order to get our 3 Umbral Hearts that we're going to want. That's going to reduce the cost of our spells once we switch over to Fire Phase by a lot for 3 uses. After that, we are going to put Thunder 3. Now, Thunder 3, if it triggers, adds the 310 potency initial hit, as it says there. So I did the calculations, and 70 plus the amount of damage that gets added onto its initial damage from the what's it called? From the proc that lets you cast it for free, makes it a hit for 310. Now Fire 4 here only hits for 300, but because we're going to be having 3 fire buffs, that means this is going to be hitting for a lot more than that. That is why Thunder 3 is only applied once and never reapplied except in between ice phases. So right now it's Blizzard 3, Enochian, a Blizzard 4, into setting one application of Blizzard 3 on the single target, and then at this point we are going to trigger our ley lines, and then use Fire 3 to instantly go into Astral Fire 3 and into our Fire phase. At that point we are going to cast 3 Fire 4s, which are going to have their cost kept at 800 because of the 3 Umbral Hearts that we are going to have. Then at that point, there's going to be between 5 and 7 seconds left on our Fire buffs, so we are going to refresh it with a Fire spell. And then we are going to cast 3 more Fire 4s. At this point, we are going to have anywhere between 800 to 1200 mana, and that is only enough to use Despair. Now at this point in the rotation, we should get our first charge of, Enochian down here. So we will instantly use Cinoglossy right after Despair if it's available. If not, because an instant we'll cast it at some point in the fight. And then once that's over, once we have 0 mana, we are going to use the free fire spell that our traits now give us in order to cast Blizzard 3 and literally restart the rotation over. So as you can see, that rotation is actually very, very easy to pull off. So here we go. From that, into Nokian, into Blizzard 4. Apply 1 stack of Thunder. Ley Lines into Fire 3, and into 3 Fire 4s. And there's the third one. Refresh our Fire buff with a normal Fire. Cast 3 more Fire 4s. And from there into Despair, there it goes right there. Into there because it just procced, into Blizzard 3, and repeat. As you can see, it is actually a very simple rotation that is very easy to remember. And actually flows very nicely into itself, especially with our new talents. And refresh the buff. There we go. And repeat. And that right there was the single target rotation for the Mage. Now, we were standing still quite a bit, and unfortunately, if a fight requires us to move a significant amount of time, we can always use that to keep our buffs going, which is very important. That is Umbral Soul. It is an instant buff refresh for us, but it's only available in the Ice phase. So if you need to run away for a significant amount of time, switch to Ice phase and then keep refreshing it with Umbral Soul. Now, what about AoE? Well, AoE is actually very, very different, but it's actually a very short rotation that we keep going that actually deals a very decent amount of damage and is surprisingly also simple. So, the AoE rotation is actually a lot easier. We are going to start with 1 freeze to get our 3 Umbral Hearts, to get our Umbral Ice and 1 Umbral Heart. This is going to be what we are going to use together with a very old trait that, yeah, here it is. Reduces the MP required to cast Flare by 1/3 while under the effect of Umbral Heart. However, it gets rid of every single Umbral Heart we have. This means that 1 Umbral Heart is just as good as 3. That is why we are going to use only 1 free spell to get that 1 Umbral Heart. After we do that, because we have 3 Umbral Ice decks, we can actually cast Flare quite quickly, and it won't consume all of our mana anymore. And then we're going to have enough mana to cast a second one, which at that point will put us back at 0. But thanks to our brand new level 72 buff, we can now cast 1 freeze for free. And that's how the rotation goes. So here we go. Into that. Straight into Flare. Straight into the second Flare, which is a lot slower because we no longer have buffs. Back into Freeze. And that is literally all you gotta do. Literally. So what about Thunder 4? Well, according to what I read, it is actually very useful to keep Thunder 4 on every single target. This is the one that you want to use Sharpcast on, so let us read. It hits everybody for 50 right off the bat, so very nice, so the more people the better. And then puts a debuff on them for 30 potency over 18 seconds. That hit means it hits 6 times. That means it hits for a total of 180, oddly enough. So if we add it onto it, that is 230 damage every time it procs. Now it says 3% chance, but remember, you are hitting this on at least 3, sometimes up to 10 targets at once, especially if you're running dungeons and the tank and the healer can actually keep up. So you can actually end up casting this 3 or 4 times in a row for a significant amount of damage, and it's also putting a little damage over time effect. So let us see how much damage actually, So this is the first one, so that's what it normally hits for, around 2,000. And the other one hits for 9,000 to 13,000. As you can see, very nice damage over time. And they're taking damage. So how are we going to handle AoE pulse? Well, we're going to start with a freeze, usually with a Swiftcast just to get things going. Get the Thunder 4s going with Sharpcast. And then while you're waiting for it to proc, spam your flares. Followed by your freezes. There's the proc again. Keep it going. Go back to using flares. Oh, and make sure you trigger a knock-in. Now, don't forget to do it like I did there, so we can actually keep using Foul when it comes up. Refresh with Flare. So as you can see, if it doesn't proc, you have literally 2 whole rotations in between it. Sharpcast is ready once again. Reapply this. Wait for the procs. Flare 1. Here comes Flare 2. There's the Foul. Unfortunately, the Foul has a cast time, but what can we do about it? Not much. And just repeat. And that is literally it. That is the AoE rotation. Very easy, isn't it? Compared to some of the melee classes that have positional effects and combo, weapon skill combos and all that, the Mage is surprisingly and refreshingly easy to use once you get to level 70. I mean, in the lower levels, when I get tossed into the low level dungeons, I get confused and don't know what skills to use in what order because a lot of stuff is missing. But once you get at level 70, that rotation that we just did is exactly what you're going to be doing. I mean, at level 70 and level 71, you're still going to have to use Transpose to switch into the Ice Phase to get your mana back. But once you hit 72 and you get that new trait, you no longer have to use Transpose to switch to the Ice Phase. Just head straight into Blizzard 3 and we are set to go. So yeah, the Black Mage, there really isn't much to say about it. It's actually very easy and very powerful if you don't have to run around a lot, unfortunately. Because running around will reduce your DPS. Even though we do have Swift Cast and Triple Cast, it is just not enough. So my recommendation is, for example, in the Kitana Revel, I believe it's called. In Malik as well, on the final boss, when you gotta run around avoiding all the AoEs, I recommend you use Swift Cast sparingly while running. Don't cast your Fire Force instantly. Cast it, wait a few seconds, cast it again, and cast it again, so you can keep your fire buffs going constantly and not lose them out. So that's what I would use it for. But yeah, Black Mage, really easy to play along, really powerful, and surprisingly easy. So anyway, we will see you next time.